The room smelled like sweat and old mats. Voices echoed, shoes squeaked. It was just another training day in the judo dojo until she walked in. Small, quiet, eyes low, wearing a worn-out white gi that didn't quite fit. Some of the boys smirked. One whispered, "She won't last 10 minutes." The coach barely glanced at her. "Pair up," he said, and no one chose her, until they made her face him. The club's top fighter. Tall, confident, fast. He cracked his knuckles, already smiling like the match was won. "Don't worry," he said loud enough for others to hear. "I'll go easy." She didn't respond, just stepped onto the mat, bowed quietly, and waited. Laughter circled the room like a breeze. One girl looked away, too embarrassed for her. But then, the room fell silent. In one blur of movement, she shifted, dropped, and flipped him flat on his back. The loudest sound wasn't his fall. It was the silence that followed. She stood, calm, not proud, not angry, just still, like she had nothing to prove. Because she didn't. If you've ever been overlooked, doubted, or told you're not enough, stay with this story. You're not alone. And this is only the beginning. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you'd like to follow more stories like hers. Before the dojo, before the crowd, before the flip that made jaws drop, there was just Aya. She lived in a small apartment above a corner shop. The kind of place where the walls were thin, the light came in soft, and the kettle always whistled just a bit too long. Her mornings were quiet. No alarm, just habit. Up at 5. Stretch. Boil water. 1 tea bag. No sugar. No milk. She didn't like things too sweet. While the city still slept, Aya trained. Alone. In her room, with a mat rolled out beside the bed and a mirror cracked in the corner. She practiced movements over and over, hips low, hands steady, eyes sharp. There was no coach to yell at her. No partner to praise her. Just her. And the rhythm of effort no one saw. Sometimes, the downstairs neighbors complained about the thuds. She always apologized with a small bow and a shy smile. No one really knew her. Not at school, where she sat near the back and rarely raised her hand. Not at work, where she cleaned tables at a small cafe and gave the tips to the busboy who needed them more. Aya didn't talk much. Not because she didn't have words, but because she saved them for moments that mattered. Her father used to say, "True strength is quiet. Loud things break easily." But he was gone now. Cancer took him in winter, when the snow covered everything like silence. Aya was 12. She didn't cry much at the funeral. Instead, she stayed behind when everyone left. She brushed the snow off his grave with her bare hands and whispered, "I'll keep going. I promise." And she did. Day by day, step by step, through grief, through school, through nights when dinner was just rice and soy sauce. She carried pain like a stone in her pocket. Not heavy enough to stop her, but always there. A reminder. She didn't have a judo coach for most of her life. She learned from books, old YouTube videos, and watching others at local tournaments. She couldn't afford to enter. Sometimes she practiced with shadows. Sometimes with her little brother, who giggled every time she threw him onto the mattress. But mostly, she trained with herself. Discipline was her best friend. Focus, her closest family. No one clapped for her. No one filmed her workouts. No one said, "You're amazing." But she didn't train for applause. She trained for respect. For her father's memory. For the girl she saw in the mirror, the one who never gave up. Some days Aya wished she could be like the others. Loud, popular, effortless. But she knew, strength doesn't always look like noise. Sometimes it looks like a girl tying her belt for the 100th time, even when no one's watching. So when she stepped into that dojo weeks later, and they laughed at her, dismissed her, it wasn't new. She'd lived in silence long before that moment. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was everything she'd built in that silence. Every early morning, every quiet heartbreak, every throw, she practiced alone. It all lived inside her bones. Waiting for the right moment to show what silent strength really looks like. This is Aya. Not the weak girl they saw in judo class, but the quiet storm they never saw coming. Have you ever felt invisible even while trying your hardest? So, stay with her. Her story might be yours too. Back in the dojo, the mood had shifted, but not completely. Some clapped, confused. Some whispered. Some stared at Aya like they were seeing her for the first time. And others? They didn't like it at all. Especially Ray. Ray was the captain. Fast, strong, loud. Everyone listened when he spoke because he usually won. He had medals lined up in his locker and a voice that always echoed louder than the rest. Aya had just flipped his best friend, their champion, like it was nothing. And Ray didn't like being surprised. He stepped forward, clapping slow. Not in respect, in mockery. Well, he said, looks like we've got a secret weapon. Laughter. Forced. Uneasy. He walked around Aya, looking her up and down like she was a machine that needed testing. Beginner's luck, someone mumbled. Ray smirked. She's not even ranked, he said. No belt, no record. Just one lucky throw. Aya didn't flinch. She bowed politely, then stepped off the mat, calm as ever. But Ray wasn't done. You should show us more, he said, voice sharper now. Let's see if that was real, or just a fluke. His tone was still playful, but something darker sat underneath. The coach, silent all this time, finally spoke. Ray, that's enough. But Ray wasn't listening. He looked at Aya again, this time like a challenge. Like he had something to prove. Afraid she'll beat me too? He said. The coach narrowed his eyes, but didn't answer. Aya's hands were folded gently in front of her gi. Still no words. Still no emotion. Only stillness, like a deep lake no one could see the bottom of. The next few days at practice, the energy changed. Ray made sure of that. Every time Aya entered the room, voices dropped. Eyes followed her. Comments circled. Watch out. She might flip you. Careful, silent killers here. But none of it was said with kindness. Aya didn't respond. She just trained. Quiet. Focused. One movement at a time. She never asked for a rematch. Never demanded respect. But her silence only made Ray louder. She thinks she's better than us, he said during water break. She's hiding something. I can feel it. But the truth was, Aya wasn't hiding anything. She just didn't need to explain herself. One afternoon, Ray challenged her in front of everyone. Let's settle it, he said, throwing down his towel. You and me. Real match. No lucky flips. Let's see what you've got. Everyone turned. Even the coach didn't speak this time. Aya stood still, then nodded. No anger. No smile. Just a small bow, and the soft sound of her bare feet stepping forward. Ray grinned. He thought she was walking into a trap. He thought she was scared or foolish. But he had no idea what had been building inside her. What it meant to train in silence. To carry loss. To choose stillness over ego. The mat was ready. The room held its breath. And Aya stood like stone. This was no longer about proving she belonged. This was about showing what strength really looked like, not loud, not cruel, not flashy, but steady, true, unshakable. If you've ever been challenged by someone louder, bigger, or more powerful and had to keep calm while everything inside you wanted to shout, you'll want to see what happens next. Her moment is coming. The dojo floor was silent. Only the soft hum of the ceiling lights. Only the faint shuffle of feet adjusting on the mat. Aya stood across from Ray. He towered over her, taller by at least a head. His arms flexed with tension. Hers hung loose, relaxed, like a tree swaying before the storm. The coach gave a short nod. Begin. No bell. No countdown. Just stillness. And then motion. Ray lunged first, fast, strong, explosive. He gripped her gi with both hands, trying to force her backward. This was his style. Dominate early. Intimidate. Overwhelm. But Aya didn't resist. She moved with him, not away, not against, with, like wind curving around a wall. She shifted her weight to the balls of her feet, subtle as breath. Ray pushed harder, grunting. Then suddenly, she dropped. Low, fast, perfect. Her right foot hooked behind his. Her left arm pulled his balance forward, and her center twisted like a coiled spring released all at once. Wham! Ray hit the mat hard. A dull thud that echoed against the walls. Gasps filled the room. Aya stood, calm, again. Ray blinked up at the ceiling, stunned. Not hurt, just surprised. He scrambled up, shaking his head. One more, he snapped. No way that counts. The coach raised a brow but said nothing. They faced off again. This time, Ray circled slower. Aya didn't move. Ray faked left, then charged right, aiming for a shoulder grip. But Aya pivoted one smooth step to the side, letting his momentum pass her. Like stepping around a falling tree. She grabbed his sleeve mid-motion, turned, dropped her hips, and launched him again. This time he rolled, came up red-faced, panting. Someone whispered, "She's reading him like a book." Ray tried again, and again, and again. Each time, Aya adjusted, not flashy, not fast, precise. Her throws were clean. Her movements were quiet. But the impact, loud. By the fifth round, Ray's G was untucked. Sweat dripped from his chin. His breaths came in short bursts. Aya's face was steady, not smug, just focused. And the room, once full of doubt, now watched in stunned silence. One girl at the back whispered, "She's incredible." Even the coach leaned in now, arms folded, watching every move. It wasn't just that Aya was winning. It was how. No anger. No need to prove anything. Just mastery. Built from years of silent mornings, sore muscles, and lonely discipline. Then came the final round. Ray stood stiffly now, his shoulders tense, his eyes narrow. Aya bowed. So did he. And for a moment, just one, he saw her clearly. Not as the quiet girl in the corner. Not as the fluke. But as someone he had deeply, completely underestimated. He charged with everything he had left. No games. No tricks. Just raw strength. Aya stepped in close, too close for most fighters. She let him grab her. Let him try to control the match. Then, with one calm breath, she shifted her foot, turned her back, bent her knees, and flipped him clean over her shoulder. Perfect ippon. He landed flat, arms out, staring up at the ceiling like it held all the answers. The silence after was deeper than before. Not awkward. Not tense. Just respectful. Ray sat up slowly, looked at her, and then quietly bowed. I bowed back. The coach stepped forward. His voice was quiet. "I hope you all paid attention," he said. "That's what discipline looks like." No one laughed this time. No one whispered. Aya walked off the mat, unbothered, untouched by praise. She didn't need the noise, but something had changed. As she passed by her classmates, they stepped aside. Not out of fear, but respect. That night she didn't post about it. Didn't tell her brother. Didn't even write it in her journal. She just made her tea. No sugar. No milk. And stretched beneath the soft yellow glow of her bedroom lamp. Like always, because real strength doesn't shout. It just keeps showing up. After the match, the room felt different. Not loud. Not excited. Just still. Like everyone was processing what they'd just seen. Not a win, but a truth. Aya didn't celebrate. She stepped off the mat the same way she had stepped on. Calm. Light. Quiet. She grabbed her towel. Sat in the corner. Stretched her legs like it was any other day. But it wasn't. The girl who had once been invisible was now impossible to ignore. One of the younger boys approached her first. His voice barely above a whisper. "Can you show me that throw you did?" "The shoulder one." Aya looked up. She nodded once. "Of course." She stood. No smile. Just focus. She showed him the steps slowly. No big words. No flash. Just simple movement explained with patience. Others watched. Then drifted closer. Another student, the same one who'd once laughed when she walked in, now held a notepad. "What's that grip you used when he charged?" he asked, almost shy. Aya took his hand gently. Moved his fingers. "Like this," she said softly. "Don't force it. Let it guide you." Even Ray stayed after. He didn't speak at first. just stood by the wall, arms crossed, watching. Aya caught his glance once, but didn't stare. Finally, he walked over. He didn't puff up his chest, didn't joke or cover it with sarcasm. Just a short breath and then, "You're really good," he said. His voice was lower than usual. "I was wrong about you." I looked at him, not with victory, not with pride, just steady eyes. She nodded. "Thank you." Then a small pause. "You're strong too," she said, and somehow that meant more than any medal. Ray gave a small bow, one he meant. The coach approached near the end of practice. He didn't speak loudly either, just handed Aya a new belt, blue, folded neatly, tied with a ribbon. "You've earned this," he said. "More than most I've ever taught." Aya looked at the belt, then back at him. "I didn't do it for rank," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "That's why it means more." That night, the dojo emptied slower than usual. People stayed behind, asking Aya about footwork, balance, breathing. She answered every question with quiet care. No big speeches, no ego, just help given gently. She didn't talk about herself. She didn't brag. She just gave what she had, what she'd built in silence for years. And the others listened, really listened. Not because she was loud, not because she won, but because her presence finally had weight. The kind of respect that doesn't have to be announced. It simply settles into a room like gravity. After the last student left, Aya rolled up the mats with the same slow, steady movements. Ray stayed to help. No one asked him to. They didn't talk, just moved in sync, folding corners, stacking gear, sweeping the floor. When they finished, he looked at her one more time. "Do you train every day?" She nodded. He exhaled, smiled a little. "I think I'm going to start." Outside, the night was cool. The air smelled like damp earth and distant rain. Aya walked home alone, her new belt in her bag, untouched. But it wasn't about the belt. It never had been. It was about what it stood for. Discipline, quiet effort, unseen struggle that finally spoke for itself. She passed a shop window and caught her reflection. Same girl, same eyes, but something was different now. Not outside, inside. A quiet kind of strength, no longer waiting to be noticed. Back in her room, she laid the belt gently on her desk, lit one small candle. Then she knelt on the floor and whispered. I kept going, just like I promised. Spring came quietly. The cold softened. The air smelled of damp grass and open windows. The dojo was brighter now. Morning light pouring in through the high windows, dust floating like snow. Aya was no longer just a student in the corner. She had become something else. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one everyone looked to when they didn't know what to do. On Tuesday mornings, Aya arrived early, before the others, before even the coach. She rolled out the mats by herself, warmed up in silence, then waited by the door, not for approval but out of habit. One morning, the coach handed her a small key. Open up when I'm late, he said with a nod. It was just a key, but to her, it felt like a doorway had opened. New students joined that month. Nervous kids, some quiet, some overexcited. One boy cried the first time he fell. I helped him up gently, showed him how to fall safely, how to breathe. He didn't cry the next time. He smiled, and slowly, others came to her for help. Not because she demanded attention, but because she gave it fully, with patience, with care, with presence. One girl, Hannah, always stood at the back. Thin, scared, unsure. I noticed. After class, she walked over, tied Hannah's belt for her. Looser, softer. It's okay to start small, Aya said. You're already here. That's the hardest part. Hannah nodded, and came back the next day. And the next. Word spread. The girl who flipped the champion, she's the real deal. But more than that, she listens, she teaches, she understands. Ray, once her biggest critic, now practiced beside her. He didn't speak much either now, but when others struggled, he'd glance at Aya. Wait, let her guide. The coach saw it all. And one evening, after practice, he stepped into the center of the room. I've been thinking, he said. We need someone to lead the beginner classes. The room was still. Everyone already knew who he was about to name. He turned to Aya. You up for it? She looked around. At the faces watching her. At the floor she had once trained on alone. At the hands she used to tape because no one was there to help her. Now they waited for her answer, not as a test, but as a welcome. She bowed slightly. I'd be honored. The first class she led was small. 5 students. All nervous. She didn't speak much. She didn't have to. She demonstrated. She moved slow. She let them fall, laugh, mess up, and always helped them back up. She never raised her voice. But somehow they always heard her. Because Aya's presence spoke louder than any shout. Weeks passed. Her class grew. And so did her role. She became the person she once needed. The quiet hand that steadies, the calm voice in chaos, the proof that you don't have to be loud to be powerful. One afternoon, long after class had ended, Aya sat alone in the dojo. Sunlight spilled across the floor like gold. Dust floated gently in the air. Her new belt, brown now, lay folded beside her. She pulled a small notebook from her bag, opened to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote, For those who train in silence, then paused, took a breath, and began writing drills, reminders, simple tips. Not for herself anymore, but for the ones coming after. The quiet ones. The ones no one saw at first. Just like her. Later that night, she passed by a mirror. Caught her reflection. Same eyes. Same calm. But something had changed. She didn't just carry strength now. She gave it. She passed it on. Not with fame. Not with noise. But with steady hands. And a voice that spoke only when needed, but always when it mattered. Have you ever been overlooked? Have you ever walked into a room and felt like no one saw you? Not the real you, just what they assumed? Maybe you've worked hard in silence. Put in the effort when no one was watching. Stayed up late. Got up early. Not for praise, but because something inside you told you to keep going. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Aya's story isn't just about judo. It's about every quiet fighter out there. Every person who's been underestimated, ignored, or laughed at, and still chose to rise with grace. And maybe her story is a little bit like yours. So here's our gentle invitation. If you've ever been the quiet one, if you've ever trained, worked, or healed in silence, tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. And if this story moved you even just a little, share it with someone else who needs to remember how powerful they really are. Because strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And when it does, the world finally listens. Thank you for watching. Stay grounded, stay steady, and keep showing up.